Okay, this is just a walkthrough instructional video on our 2 monthly report, which we send to all our GST clients. And this is just so that you can get an understanding of what you are required to do when I send it to you. So you would receive this report every 2 months. It would be me sending you an email saying, hey, have a look at the report. If you are needing to file GST now, just let me know that we can file this GST. And you're basically just having a look at it and making sure, everything's accounted for correctly, or you don't have any questions, and that we can file. Now, obviously, you employ me to make sure everything is correctly done. So this is more you just on an overall, just checking the things overall to make sure we've covered everything that we need to cover and we haven't missed anything. So if we scroll down to the second page, this page has two sections of importance. The first section is your current GST. So in this case, this report was generated for the GST period ended 30th of September 2025. So we can see that the GST is payable by the 28th of October and the amount payable is $76.82. A little side note, a lot of times clients would leave this till the last day to pay and tend to forget about this. Go into your banking app, set up a future dated payment, and then at least, it's there, it's set and forget type of effect. The second important part is the percentage of tax to be withheld and how much you should have in your account for income tax savings so far. So this percentage is just an estimate for the next 2 months up until the point that you get the next GST report. Again, only an estimate, it's not actual, but it's better than waiting a whole entire 12 months before you know what your actual tax is going to be. So this is just to give you kind of guidance throughout the year. Everybody's tax rate will be different. Everybody's GST rate will be different. This is dependent on the specific demo company that I have. So having a look at this, it's very simple. Every dollar for the next 2 months that comes into your account as a sale, you've got to keep 1% aside for GST and a further 13% aside for income tax. I always recommend to my clients that you have a few extra suffix accounts on your bank accounts set up at the bank, that you have maybe one for GST and one for income tax. Then okay, you're watching that balance grow, and that's not your money to touch, that is IRD's money, unless we can exercise some of our superpowers and get that tax reduced for you. As a check-in as well, you want to every 2 months have a look and see, is this equal to your income tax balance? So it's not your GST bank account balance, it's your income tax bank account balance. When you are looking at this one, so in this case I'm saying to this client of the demo company, they should have this $4,000 in their account. The important thing is to remember is, if you are a provisional taxpayer, subtract any provisional tax that you've paid from August 2025 onwards. Okay, but if you have any questions on this, just call me, email me, and I'll explain this further. The next part is a very powerful report. It's the 12 monthly profit and loss report. There's a 2-step reason to this. The first reason is a self-check for yourself. As we go through the year and we don't see the bank balance increasing, we don't see the fruits of our labors, and we just don't know, is this worth it? What are we doing? Where do we need to make adjustments? Well, everything's contained in this report. Obviously, this is not a cash flow report, so cash would be different to what your profit and loss is, but this is a good indication of what should happen at the end of the day in terms of your cash, less any loans and capital items that you have. So use this report to do a bit of a self-check-in, see that you are making profits, see where you can maybe scale back on expenses you didn't realize you had, or you can adjust a little bit and do a bit of savings on there, and have a look at your sales. For this client specifically, we can see a clear upward trend. April was a terrible month, May started to pick up, and then they dipped in June again. But from July onwards, we can see there's a really good sales growth trend happening here, and that's what we want to see at the end of the day. We can only reduce expenses that much. Yeah, the report is very self-explanatory and there's nothing much to it. You can see where we've pulled the tax figure from at the bottom over here. Okay, and the second point to this report is also for you just to have a quick glance at it to see, is there maybe some expenses that you've paid for personally for perhaps and you haven't told us about. That could trigger just a reminder, hey, I need to send Ivan or the team details of those expenses. The next part, you can skip this page. This is just what's filed at IOD. It's more sort of for us to look at. The next part is the GST calculation side with the transactions. This report is divided into 4 sections. The first section is all income that has 15% GST on it. The next section is all expenses that have 15% GST on it. Then we have the section of income and expenses that have no GST. Now, an important point to remember is if in this section, only in this section, if it is positive, it is a sale or it's money in, okay? If it is in brackets, like you can see the top, if it's in brackets in this section, it means it's money out or an expense. Okay, so it's a question I get very often with the report. And the last and final section is the late claims section. Now, late claims, you don't have to really worry about. This is more where myself and my team have been making adjustments in order to get you the most tax efficient outcome at the end of the day. So really don't worry about this. We pay attention to this report and double check everything because this is generally the stuff that gets audited by IRD, so we don't want to trigger any audits or flags or anything there. So we generally always check that quite thoroughly. All right, what do I need you to do when I send you that email? Well, the most important part is to just run through all the transactions, looking at the details. The details is the description of the transaction. It's generally similar to what you've made the payment description on your bank. And I just need you to have a look at it and just make sure that if we take, for instance, Power Direct for Powerbill, we want to see that it is an expense, so it's lying under the expense, and obviously in this case we want to claim GST against it, so we want to make sure it's allocated to 15% on GST on expense. I'm not too concerned about you checking this section. We generally check this thoroughly to make sure we're allowed to claim it and that, but if there's something that you spot and you have a query on or you doubt we're allowed to claim GST on it, just flick me an email or a message or a call and we can talk through that. The important part that I want to show you, which we unfortunately only have one transaction here now, but that is the no GST section. This means we haven't claimed any GST against it. So if this was an expense, for example, I would want you to have a look at it and say, okay, what is this expense? Let me just have a look at the invoice. No, there's no GST on the invoice, or hey, I know definitely this should have GST on it, and I can see it's sitting under no GST, so no GST has been claimed. Let me just let Ivan know what's happening. Okay, and the other section that I need you to have a look at, or the other part I need you to have a look at, is to ensure that the transaction is allocated to the correct account. This account means it's a categorization. So when you get your financials will have sales, or it will have general expenses, or it will have whatever. So just have a look at that and see that you're happy with, what category it's been allocated to. On a higher level, sometimes my clients will get quite detailed with it and say, we have 3 vehicles in the business. We would really want to see, a motor vehicle account for the Mazda. We would like to see one for the BMW, and we would like to see one for the Audi. Then you can come to me and we can set that all up for you. So if that's something you want to see kind of for yourself, then absolutely, let's do that. If we scroll back up to the profit and loss report, you'll see these are the accounts that I was referring to. So we could have, for instance, motor vehicles split up. So basically there's an endless amount of detail that we can put in. There is a limitation in terms of what is practical. Sometimes too much detail might obscure what you're trying to achieve, but have a chat with me and we can see what we can do. But yes, this is in a nutshell what I need you to do when I send you this email asking you just to double check everything, and you just follow up by either signing the document and sending it to me, or you can just simply email back to me, hey Ivan, good to file, thank you very much. And if you don't know how to pay your GST yet, then just give me a shout and I'll explain to you how to pay it. It's really, really easy.